Hmm. Well, I guess I guess we're live. Are we live? Yeah, let me see. Are we live? Is YouTube working? And YouTube and all that other. Are we on? Yep. Never met. Click on, huh? Oh, cool. Hi. Okay, cool. You're on YouTube. Great. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Here it comes then. What? Sawadikap, Tukon. Sawadikap. It's Monday morning over there um, on the light side of the earth. Over here, it's starting to get dark. So, good evening to everyone in the US, Europe, Africa, Mexico, Canada. Sawadikap, everyone. Anyway, you know, I need to say whatever I'm going to say, right? What is it I'm supposed to say? Anyways, it's Sunday Night Live, Monday Morning Live. It's just live. We're just live. Anybody ever hear that? Anybody ever hear the album? Or it's not an album, although it is, by Krishna Das, Live on Planet Earth. Some beautiful stuff on there. Good evening. Which coffee do you use for coffee enema? It's got to be light. They call it blonde coffee or green coffee. It's. I think it's roasted for 45 seconds, something like that. S.W. Wilson has been selling it for years out of Canada. And when you when you heat it up and boil it it smells like doesn't smell like coffee. Like we think of coffee, it smells like a stew or something because it's still green or they call it blonde. Yeah, because you don't want it to be too. Hi, everyone. Glad you're all here. Yay. Okay, so you don't want the coffee to be. The reason you roast it at all is to activate all of um, the palmitates. You got to act. You have and the caffeine, of course, is part of it. You activate them, and but you don't want to roast them too much because they become they lose their potency, right? So we've talked about this a few times, but um, so let me just tell you real quickly. We're talking about coffee enemas. Let's just quickly do the coffee enema thing. Okay. The idea is that the palmitates will be absorbed into through the colon mucosa into the the veins that go into the portal vein, which goes into the liver, and that enterohepatic circulation is every 4 minutes. So, and there's a lot, you're not going to find studies on it. I tried to find studies on it, and they're not, because no one, I don't know, there's just no studies on it. And so, of course, them will say, oh, there's no proof. Or, yeah, okay, well, there's no proof on a lot of things. Like, for example, take these probiotics. But what I don't see when I look at the website or I talk to the company and all that, I don't see that they got a stool sample before, like maybe 100 people. They got their stool samples, then they looked at, they grew out their microorganisms, then they started them on this particular supplement or probiotic for like, say, 30 days, and then got another stool sample and showed. No one does that in most of them. Enzymes, they don't even do that. That's why I like Transformation, the company called Transformation for Enzymes, because they do research and they show you, they kind of prove what they're talking about. So a lot don't, but the coffee, they're not gonna. I don't know why they have a thing about it, but anyway. And by the way, there was a very large study, not study, but observation. Couple 100,000 people, 100,000, I don't remember, in England for like, I don't know, 10 years. It was a long study, maybe even longer. Just looking at coffee drinkers versus non-coffee drinkers. And they didn't check whether or not they put milk and sugar or whatever they put. They didn't check that, just yes or no coffee. And it looks like the people that didn't drink coffee had a significantly higher all-cause mortality. Isn't that weird? Meaning that the coffee was somehow protective. But anyway, rectally, it goes right up into there. So you get the couple tablespoons of the 3 tablespoons, put it in 2 cups of water, boil it, let it simmer down till it's only 1 cup, then pour that through some kind of mesh strainer, let it cool off, and use that right after you do a cleansing enema. Because if you don't clean out first, then the coffee won't ever make it to the walls of the colon, because they'll be stuck in feces and you won't get the benefit of it. Plus, it's going to stimulate a bowel movement. And you don't do large amounts. People are often telling me they're doing it like 2 quarts. And I go, whoa, how could you hold 2 quarts for 20 minutes? Because I couldn't hold it for a second. So you clean out first, make sure it's, you do a couple of, maybe a couple liters of just a saltwater enema. What's a saltwater enema? You just take quart of water, a liter of water, and put in like half a teaspoon of salt. Maybe. You want it to be as salty as blood is. You've all had a cut of your finger and you tasted the blood. Very mildly salty, 0.9%. So not very salty. Anyway, that's what you want to be about like that. Why you don't want it to be more salty? Because then you're going to draw water out of the body, out of the colon, and you don't want it to be a lot less salty than the blood. Otherwise, the water will get absorbed into the colonic mucosa and then into the blood and all that. So I just want it to be kind of even. It doesn't have to be exact. Taste test is great. Anyway, you clean out, make sure you've gotten all the rectal vault cleaned out nicely, and so after that's cleaned out, then you put the coffee in. There's only 1 cup now. It's concentrated. And you put about 3 pillows under your rear end, under your hips, so that your hips are higher than your chest. And then you meditate, or you read a book, or you chant, or you just be there. That's meditating. Anyway, pray. So you got 20 minutes. You want to do 20 minutes. So you couldn't have done 20 minutes if you had a large volume and you hadn't cleaned out. I don't know. Poor people that were trying to do that for so long. Anyway, that's easy. Okay, so what I wanted to say was, as you all know, so they're going to be the basic group, health and healing, and we're going to talk about everything that has to do with health and healing. Of course, that's going to always involve, parasites and CFCs, but we're going to try to focus on things that are not specifically related to that, even though they all overlap. Just so we can get in questions like, well, coffee enema would be useful for anybody. You don't have to have any particular condition to do it, to get the benefits of it. And by the way, if for some reason you can't do an enema because you're just physically unable to, and or let's say you had surgery, you got a colostomy bag, or you're really disabled, you can't even do the physical movement of doing it, and or whatever. So for any reason, you can get equal benefit and even more actually from juicing, or not juicing, but blending. Don't juice it, don't remove anything. Put 2 handfuls of broccoli sprouts in your nut milk, your freshly made nut milk, after you had freshly ground 3 tablespoons of flax. You put strawberries, put whatever you want else in there, and make it as good as you want. You want to put a little bit of, dab of honey. You want to put, whatever. There's yacon. There's other sweeteners you could use. Don't put aspartame, or just put a lot of good, bunch of strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. Anyway, do that, and you're going to get all of phase 2 detoxification enzymes elevated, not just glutathione as transferase, which is what's supposed to be stimulated by the palmitates, the kawahol and the kathakol that are in the coffee. That's what's supposed to happen. But you can get it from doing that. So you want to be extra. You want to have an extra ability to produce glutathione. Do both. By the way, exercise increases glutathione because you're running or exercising, and that produces oxidative stress. Your body's response to oxidative stress is to turn on those antioxidant enzymes, which happen to be glutathione, thioreducin, things like that. Catalase, superoxidase, you make all of them, but including glutathione, right? And if you want to take a supplement for glutathione, don't take glutathione because it won't work, because you'll digest it into 3 different amino acids. They'll be absorbed individually and go wherever they go. But if you take N-acetylcysteine and glycine, which is one of the amino acids, the other one is glutamine, then you can measurably see an increase in intracellular glutathione production. Now, a much bigger response when you get the NAC, N-acetylcysteine, intravenously. Anyway, so got a lot of people. Whoa, TikTok is like, people come it's like 98 and then 40. So I think TikTok is like, you got to live in the nanosecond world. That's what they should call TikTok, nanosecond world. Anyway, so you guys are what? Okay, cool. All right. So anyway, so we're going to have these 3 groups, health and healing, where we're going to talk about, how do you stay healthy? What is health? How can I preserve health? How can I be restored to health? How can I help? How can I assist in health restoration? Or what can I do for my children so that they can grow up living that way, being healthy? Is this kind of food good? Is that kind of food good? So we'll talk about that. In fact, we'll come to the conclusion that the only food worth eating is human food. So we'll do, everything fasting. We'll, sleep. Is sleep important? Just ask someone who hasn't slept in 3 days. But yeah, it's incredible. But we'll get into the details, and then I with each of these groups, the other one is the Parasite group, and the other one is the CFC group. For those who don't, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm not going to try. I hate that word, try. We don't try anything. Try means didn't, don't, won't. Didn't, don't, won't. I tried to get there on time. I'll try to. When you hear that word, just go, it's kind of like the word but. That's really makes a lot of sense. But as soon as they say but, everything they just said previously is nullified. So we don't like the words but and try. And we also have to get rid of transitive verbs, okay? So, if you join the parasite group, then we're going to talk just about parasites. That's it. And then the other one, CFC groups, we're just going to talk about CFCs. Of course, all the other things are part of it. All the other aspects of the parasite, because parasites are big part of CFCs. And and then of course, if you're join the parasite group, then you're automatically a member of the health and healing group. And if you join the CFC group, you're automatically a member of the other two. So there's going to be a monthly closed Zoom where we'll all be able to communicate. And I'm going to start it out by talking about one aspect of whatever our group is about. And then we'll start asking questions and get into discussions live, real, without any, you don't mail in the discussions on the questions, right? Unless you're not going to be able to make it for a week and you want to do that. But let's just keep it live and interactive. That's really the goal. And so just a quick, some people do disclaimers, but for a quick, I have to do, I'm in my 70s. Congratulations. And have symptoms of fatty liver. Maggie. Symptoms. I'm not sure what symptoms would be. However, if anyone thinks they have fatty liver, then it's very simple because the fat's being produced because there's too much glucose. Going into the liver. So you do some cleansing. Cleansing you do a 3-week juice cleanse. Drink nothing but 4 liters of fresh juice, vegetable juice with a little bit of fruit. Put as much fruit as you need to make it delicious. Got to be delicious. So you do that for 3 weeks, and you do some enemas or go get some colonics. Clean out your gut. Take some stuff that's going to help heal your gut. Because remember, your liver is not in isolation. It's part of a system called the body, mind, spirit complex. But it's like directly in touch with that long tube, that 10 meter tube we have, 30-foot tube we have, starts here, ends there. But it's directly there, but it's also getting input from the whole body and doing detoxifying is what it does. And then it produces bile as well, but and bile is part of its cleansing, excretory function. So that's what you do. You clean out your whole GI system by doing that. Colonics or enemas, if you're not anywhere near it to get a colonic, learn how to do enemas in the morning. It doesn't have to be coffee. I'm not talking about coffee. I'm just talking about cleansing enemas. The colonics are very important to get the whole colon cleaned. Now, where was that? Oh, the fatty liver. Okay, so you've cleaned that out, and then when you start eating again, you're going to eat human food as much as you can or will, and you're going to stop eating 4 to 5. Are you 70? 5 hours before sleep. And you're going to go to sleep at 9, latest. 5 hours before sleep. And then you can eat, which would be, so if you're going to bed at 9, that means you're going to stop at 4, which means you can eat your first meal at 10. It's easy. And if you indeed do have a fatty liver, within a couple months, you won't have a fatty liver. Just won't. All right, so now, all right. So I want to say that this is coming up. I think like as soon as I get back to Thailand, it's probably we're gonna get started. I don't know the date. Anyway, get on there. Go to the drlodi.com/inner circle. Get on that list. So remember, everybody, we're on, and I guess it's working now. So I got this software thing called Restream. So Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn are all at Dr. Thomas Lodi. And then the odd one, which is X Twitter, is at Dr. Thomas Lodi, MD. Yeah. All right. And of course, they're all saved. Yeah. And I yeah, stomach and enema. So perfect. You just do the cruciferous vegetables, and the best way to get a lot of cruciferous vegetables raw without eating a ton of broccoli sprout. You know what? This is cold. Excuse me. It's always cold on my arm, and I turn it off, and it gets hot. Is that on? Yeah, better. Warm. I mean, not warm, not cold. Okay, so that's that. We're gonna do that, and there's gonna be other stuff in those groups. We're gonna have our own chat, and we'll be communicating all the time about whatever that subject is, and yeah. But just for those, my disclaimer, or not my words. Anybody ever see My Fair Lady? My Fair Lady. I know you had to have been born in the 18th century, but it's good no matter when you were born. It's good. Anyway, there's a song in there where she's saying words. I'm so sick of words. But anyway, I'm telling you that words are our mind, and we be very careful what we let in our mind. Very careful. Okay, and so words. That's why we don't use word. We use words. Like we want to be wordsmiths. We want to communicate to each other we're not going to use idioms, because that's when you learn that idiom and I learned that idiom, there were different situations. So my impression of that idiom or my perception of that idiom and your perception might be different. So if we use them, we're not communicating. So we're not going to use those. We're going to, if we come to a part in our discussion where an idiom might come out like, what are stitch in time saves 9, birds of a feather flock together, opposites attract. And how does that work? Birds of a feather flock together and opposites attract. Meaning what? Yeah, that's what it means. So, but don't use an idiom, because it's for idiots and it keeps you stupid, because it makes you not think. So try to say whatever you're going to say fresh, the way you just think of a way of saying it. All right. And then don't use, and be careful of what words mean, right? Like you're not going to use certain words in certain situations because of what you might think, that's what how someone might perceive that word. And so another thing to do is when you're talking is let's say, hey, let's define words. We're going to be using these few words as our part of our discussion. Let's define what. So we have a shared definition of the word, at least for this conversation, and then have the conversation. Okay, because if we're discussing a subject like meat, and I have a definition of it, and you have a definition of it, and they're different, we're not going to ever communicate. All right, so we don't use the word cancer, because the word cancer has no informational meaning. It doesn't mean anything, right? Other than a zodiac sign, we know that, and other than that, there's no meaning. You can't do dictionary. Fear. So I don't think that's a good idea to just communicate fear with each other, right? Because if we're talking, we're really talking for the purpose of exchanging information, unless it's like love talk and you want to convey emotion. That's different. So if you're trying to convey emotion, convey nice emotions, sweet emotions, emotions that are words that make people feel good, right? And if you're in an argument, you'll use words that you know. See, and it's not that you guys don't know how you're affecting others, because you know just what to say during an argument that's going to really like bum someone out or make them feel sad. We know how to do that in an argument. We pick it out all the time. You say the thing that you know. So if we know that side of things, let's know the other side. But anyway, so we don't use that word cancer because it doesn't convey anything but fear, and fear gets you nowhere quickly. So we want to convey what we're talking about. We're talking about chronically fermenting cells, period. And you all know that. Hopefully. If you're brand new, just understand that's what it is. The cell is adapting to a situation that destroyed that part of the cell which needed oxygen to make energy. And so it had to ferment. And in order to ferment, it had to make some changes to become a successful fermenter. So CFC, chronically fermenting cell, that conveys information. It gives you information. So now you know what it is. And once you know what it is, you say, okay, so how to get this way? So I can get rid of this and I can deal with it. I have a rational approach to it. But if you have the monster cancer, there's no meaning to it. It's just like it's just like dark cloud enveloping you. That doesn't, what does that do for anybody? Unless, of course, you are one of the white-coated sorcerers that work in the House of Horrors, then it does a lot for you. It's going to get you compliance. It's going to get you some surgeries. It's going to get you some. So they use that. Anyway, that's that. But I had to say something. I wanted to say something to you guys. Okay, I was wondering. Now I'm not in the U.S. very often, and the reason, the only disadvantage of not being in the U.S. There's only one, is that the U.S. is the fountain of morality. This is where all morality comes from. If you want to know what's right and wrong, go to the U.S. They'll tell you. So here's my problem. If I don't have a boat. I'd love a boat. Living in Phuket, I'd love to have a boat. But I'm don't have that kind of money or anything close to it. So I don't have a boat. But I was just wondering, I don't know why I was wondering that. Why yesterday? Here I'm in the desert, I'm thinking about a boat. But I was wondering, wasn't thinking about a boat. I was just wondering, wait a minute. Every time I've seen a boat, it's always called a she. They have a female name. So I'm thinking, what do these people do now? Now that we've learned what's right and wrong about pronouns, wow. So what do you do? So I thought about it. I said, well, let me look this up. So I looked it up, and do you know what's been happening in the last few years? That's right. They're now, you don't have to call your boat a she anymore. It's you can call it a knit. Okay. So anyway, but I was wondering how people would deal with it. But then it got me to thinking again, and I was thinking, whoa, what about people that speak Latin-based languages, right? Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese. What are they going to do? Because every noun is classified as either a female or male. Nouns. So how are you going to refer to a noun if you want to be, what's the word? Appropriate? I'm not sure what the word is, but I don't care. But anyway, so what are you going to do? What will you do? Well, this must be throwing the whole Latin-based language countries into confused, right? What do you do? How would you call it, right? Because right, every noun is either has feminine or male. Anyway, so, and basically you realize that when we're talking about what we're talking about, I don't know, the reason that I bring this kind of subject up often is because because of all the the systems, when you look at, okay, there are two basic activities that biological organisms do. All right. I mean, we assume they're already breathing or whatever however they breathing, or they're anaerobic and they don't breathe, but they're still respiring. But other than that, they're either eating or making babies. That's pretty much what they're doing. And of course, some do that at nighttime, and then they sleep during the day, and they're called nocturnal. And some do that during the day and sleep at night, and they're called diurnal. But still, that's what they're doing, those two basic activities. And so the procreation part, the part of making babies or making offspring, producing offspring, is pretty much the same. There's called a monogamete. Monogamete is an egg or a reproductive, like testes or gametes, not gametes, but they're gonads, and then ovaries are gonads, right? And they produce. So there's mono or hetero gametes. So in, like, for example, if you took, like, crickets, grasshoppers, and a few other insects, the female is XX, so it's called homogamete, because it's just got X, just one kind. So it's homo meaning one. Okay, and the male, there's no chromosome. So you're either XX or you're XO. So the XO is the male. And that's that system. Then there's this other system. There's, like, some of the birds and butterflies, a ZW and a ZZ. Okay, but again, there's the ZW is heterogamete and the ZZ is monogamete. All right. And then, of course, there's all the rest of the other group, which of all the rest of us, and we fall in there, which is the XX and the XY. All right. And so we know that. So the monogametic are the female, XX. And the heterogamete, more than one, is the XY. Right? So the only thing that's going to determine the offspring's sex would be the Y, the sperm. Yeah. And I guess that's why the Latin languages had either male or female, because fundamentally, that's all there is. This goes into there and becomes, it's kind of all there is. Anyway, so I was just wondering that, because, how do you be politically correct in conversation if you don't go to America once in a while and find out? Because you know what? This whole thing with the pronouns, I didn't find it anywhere else. Anybody from Europe, do you guys do it in Europe? Are you, like, worried about that? Do people have pronouns? Where's that painting from? I don't know. Yeah, it looks pretty. It looks like Arizona. The mountains. Yeah, so there's some fantastic, or maybe New Mexico. Looks pretty nice. But anyway, I certainly don't see it in Asia. No, I don't. Anyone worrying about what kind of pronouns they're going to be called. It's just assumed. Like, it's very interesting. Let me just give you an example. In Thailand, there's a lot of gatui, which is the Thai word for ladyboy, and so and then there's other gay men. So when they speak ending their sentences with ka, which is how females end. Males end their sentences with ka, krap. And no one thinks about it. No one cares. No one says anything. So the guy is who's gay or a lady just says ka. But no one thinks about it. And we don't care what bathroom they use. I've never seen. I guess I have once. But so what? I had to come back here to find out what's important, and what's right and what's wrong. Anyway. Okay, so you guys don't want to hear about this stuff. You want to get into stuff. One other thing I want to tell you. This is very important. Now, this is relevant, you guys. So sorry for being irrelevant there for a moment. This is relevant now because I was when I saw this sentence, it blew my mind twice. It said, "Why cancer is not one disease." First of all, there's two words in there I never use: cancer and disease, because they're both. There are no diseases. We've talked about that. But anyway, so but what they say is this. Check it out. They say, and I want you to hear this, because I want you to realize that they're not even internally consistent. They said which type of cancer you have depends on where in the body it forms. Yes, it's not a type. It depends on where it's formed. Form starts in the ovary. That's what it is. If it starts in the elbow, that's what. Okay, right. So they said that. Okay. And then they said that the changes that occur that lead to CFCs are either inherited or the result of damage inflicted on the cell's DNA by environmental factors such as tobacco and ultraviolet rays. Whoa, that's all? So tobacco and the sun. You notice that's all they ever talk about, right? Nothing else matters. Doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter, right? The sun. Now, the sun, by the way, do you realize they got us convinced that the source of all energy, of all life in this galaxy, the sun, is bad for us? They got us convinced. So we put poison cream on our skin to protect us from the sun. It's okay. It's just that's how deep and sick and perverted and twisted we have become from that teaching. Anyway, so now here's interesting. Now, you also, again, I'm going to use medical terms and scientific terms, and I'm going to explain what they mean, because why? Because you're not stupid. But if you talk to anybody in the professions, they're going to treat you as if you're stupid, and you're not. I'm going to give you an example here. This article. Okay. Still, researchers now know that cancer is actually an umbrella term for scores of different diseases. They haven't proven what they're talking about yet. Each with its own unique characteristic and often its unique treatment needs. It's not true. Anyway, so for example, many prostate and breast cancers respond to hormone therapy. But anyway, where is it? But lung, but I want to tell you something there. Anyway, it blew my mind. It was saying prostate is a cancer. Prostate cancer is a cancer that forms in the prostate. And breast cancer is a cancer that forms in the breast. They actually say that. Meaning that you're so stupid that you couldn't, even if you'd never heard it before, you couldn't have gotten it by the phrase. Because in English, adjectives go before. We're gonna get anyway. I just want to show you that. And then they go, okay, so sometimes drugs overlap and can work on different tumor types, but that's something that has to be proven through clinical research. Anyway, so what they're saying is that they were trying to make an excuse for the reason why it doesn't matter. Because all of you, if they want to do a biopsy, they do the biopsy. Why do you want to do the biopsy? What do you can see? Well, I got to do the biopsy because I got to know. I got to look at what the type site on the appropriate poison. Appropriate chemo. Okay, so turns out not to be true at all because cisplatin, carboplatin, and the taxanes, ovarian. It works on breast too. It works on colon too. Or we usually get it in the lung. So that's not true. All of the ones that gemcitabine, a must for pancreatic. But if the colon, it works in the colon too. And then you got someone that's resistant with the breast, you can use it. I'm just okay. So you understand all the clinical trials and all this idea of doing a biopsy to find out the exact histopathology, not just histology. Histology is a term that means microscopic anatomy. If I put a piece of tissue under the microscope and you look at it and you go, that's skin. That's brain. That's ovary. You got to just know those things because they have a pattern, right? Different tissues have a different pattern. And so they're going to tell you, and when you do biopsy, they look at it under the microscope and they go, yes, this is definitely a CFC because it's different. And it was in the duct, but it's going through the wall of the duct. So, it's invasive ductal. And that's it. This is description. No, it's not a description. That's a diagnosis. So the whole thing is foolish, crazy, and it's just to sell stuff. It's to sell you products and services. Because once I get that nomenclature, the correct nomenclature, I can stick it on that algorithm. And thank God for those algorithms. Because now that I got this algorithm, I don't have to think. I don't have to think at all. I just follow the algorithm. So that's why I got to get that diagnosis right away. You understand? I hope you understand. So these guys are not. They don't know. They are, and then okay. They were talking about alternative therapies, and because she said, this lady they were interviewing for this article, she was a well-known oncologist, and she said that alternative. What are they calling alternative? Yeah, alternative treatments are not proven, or they've been proven to be unsafe. So then they said, well, will my insurance cover alternative cancer treatments? Because I'm pretty stupid, so I got to ask that question because I can't figure it out myself. Okay, so insurance companies usually will not cover alternative methods that have not been shown to be helpful for the illness or symptom you have. Okay, but all the chemotherapies have been shown to be helpful, right? We need a long pause there because it's absolutely a lie, wrong, and not only a lie. I mean, I'm not just saying that. Once we get our groups and I can share, I'm going to show you these published peer-reviewed journals, oncology journals, that it makes it worse. But the insurance companies pay for it. How is that, Miss Doctor? And to be covered by insurance, a treatment must be shown to be safe, effective, and necessary for a certain condition. I see. Kind of like that, and that's when the Fraud and Death Association will approve it. Like I found out they just recently approved an mRNA injection for respiratory syncytial virus. This, like a kind of like a flu, but it's another mRNA. And of course, we know that they've already shown that it's safe, effective, and necessary. They've already shown that. Otherwise, the FDA wouldn't have approved it, right? Right. I'm just trying to show you, it's not just it's not subtle. It's an extremely blatant absurdities. Alternative has not. Anyway, I can't say it again because it hurts to say it, it hurts to hear it. But I just want you to realize that we're dealing with we're dealing with. I don't know how you folks made it. I really we are doing how you got through those battlegrounds. But anyway, their whole system just doesn't make any sense at all, and we just stop thinking. In order to go along with that, you have to just turn off your mind and say, okay. You have to not think. And I mean, they even say, how do I talk to my doctor about alternative medicine? I mean, how? And by the way, it says you should go to a place that has a reliable place that has information. And I'll stop in a moment. I just want to tell you this. Okay. So how do I talk to my doctor? Well, you want to, first of all, you got to tell your doctor that to be kind and at least listen to you. Make a list of the questions. Bring a family friend to support you. Why? And then always listen what the cancer team has to say, cancer care team has to say. Don't delay or skip a treatment in the meantime. And then be sure to ask your doctor if there are mainstream methods for treating the side effects or symptoms you're having. Okay. And so you're going to ask the doctor if there's conventional for that. If you're taking dietary supplements, make a complete list of what you're taking. Many supplements can interact in harmful ways with cancer medicines. So talk with your doctor and pharmacist about your supplements and medicines. Okay, so you're going to ask them when they know nothing about it. They know nothing about it. They don't know anything about it. For example, they think that intravenous high-dose vitamin C is an antioxidant. So you shouldn't take it while you're getting chemotherapy, because chemotherapy functions is as a pro-oxidant. It oxidizes. So you don't want to take high-dose vitamin C. So you can't ask this guy for his advice or her advice. Because even you all who didn't go to medical, or maybe I did, but for those of you who didn't, know that high-dose vitamin C functions as a pro-oxidant. So what would it do with the chemo? It would enhance it. So you can't ask these guys their opinion on anything. And so if you're breastfeeding, you think of the risks of alternative methods. Think of the risk of alternative medicines, okay? Don't think of the risks of chemotherapy, radiation. Don't think about that. Just think about it. Oh, and here's never give herbal medicine to children without talking to their doctors first, who know nothing about herbal medicine. But if I were making this up, it'd be cool. And then here's the thing. Ask your doctor to help you identify possible fraud and questionable treatments. Okay. So quackery. Now get this, quackery. Their definition. Quackery refers to the promotion of unproven or disproven methods that claim to prevent, diagnose, or cure. Let's see. Doxorubicin, cisplatin, gemcitabine, carboplatin, paclitaxel. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Because these methods are often based on theories of disease and treatment that are contrary to accepted scientific ideas. At least they're honest, not proven, accepted by convention. They've agreed. Promoters of such methods often use patient testimonials as evidence. Yeah. Right. So you don't want to ask the patient if they're doing well or if they did well. You got to do a study. Okay, so fraud goes one step beyond quackery. In this case, treatments are advertised deceptively by people whose main intent is to make money. Oh my God, some of those treatments have been found not to work. You mean like chemotherapy? Anyway, okay, anyways, you got it. So anyway, so where can I go for information to find about alternative medicine? Well, you got to go to, along with the American Cancer Society, the following is a partial list. The United States Food and Drug Administration. You can ask them for information on alternative. Or you go to the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, for information on nutrition. Okay, and they're also going to tell you about dietary supplements. Or you should go to the National Cancer Institute, or to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. And while you're there, you can lodge a complaint against an alternative medicine practitioner. Yeah, while you're there, just lodge a complaint against an alternative. Okay, and then you can go to the National Council Against Health Fraud. And this is a private, nonprofit, voluntary health agency that looks at health misinformation, fraud, and quackery. And the main one is Quackwatch. Right? So Quackwatch. And so we looked at, Quackwatch. What is Quackwatch? Well, I made it onto Quackwatch. If you don't make it on the Quackwatch, you got to make sure the person you're seeing has made it onto Quackwatch. Okay. So Quackwatch is they clear up the truth about this, about all these questionable things like vitamin C, curcumin, and all that sort of thing. They clear it up. The guy that started it all, a guy named Barrett, who was used as a anyway, he said he said he was a retired psychiatrist, and he started Quackwatch. Retired psychiatrist, and he spoke as an expert in many expert testimony. Then when he was being cross-examined, because he was being sued for defaming people, he had to admit in court finally that, well, he's not really board certified because he failed the test, which is fraud, which means everything that he was hired, I mean, in all the trials that he had testified in, he was no longer qualified. Anyway, because he was not, and then he also claims to be a legal expert and he didn't go to law school. Anyway, I just had to bring this up to you, okay? Just to remind you how bizarre, sick they are, and all that sort of thing. So here's a question. This one here is from Maggie, and she's saying, do you know any doctors in Texas who share your perspective on CFC treatment? We're not going to use that ugly word again, for uterine CFCs. Okay, so good question, Maggie. Unfortunately, I don't know anybody presently in Texas. And really, there's, except for the groups that I'm working directly with, nobody thinks that way, the way I think. And the way I think is not, how do I say this? It's definitely different than the way everybody thinks. And it's just because I don't accept certain things. I don't accept the concept of disease. I don't accept the concept of, therefore, if there's no disease, there's no cure, because there's nothing to cure. I see it as a physiological adaptation. And I think we need to restore balance and physiology is our goal. And we need to do that by getting good. Okay. But anyway, but people that are more alternative, or more not as conventional, are doing that at some degree, are they're around. Now in Texas, there was a guy named Gus Kotsanas. He's passed now. Was a very nice, wonderful man, and I knew his wife, and they were in small town. I have it here. Small town in Texas. Anyway, not a small town. Just part of Texas I had never heard, and they were well known. Now Gus was part of the original group that we were in that started IPT, and we started all the integrative oncology annual seminars, and back around late 1990s, early 2000s, we kind of did that. There was no such thing as integrative oncology at that point. The name didn't even exist. Gus was one of the original guys. Really a great guy. He fought the Texas board for Kotsanas. It's still there. It's called the Kotsanas Institute, and It's in Grapevine, Texas. I'm not sure where that is, but it's called the Kotsanis Institute. So you could call them, and if that's really far from you, you can ask them if they know anyone near you, right? Because, but that's what I know in Texas, and there's a. So how do you find someone? Let's say wherever state you're in, and that's really difficult. One thing you can do is you can go on to just to find people. Like, first of all, you can go online and if you put in the word integrative oncology or integrative medical care, it's become an abused phrase. Everyone's saying it now. MD Anderson has an integrative department. So you can't really use that. Oh, Grapevine is right near the Dallas Fort Worth Airport. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Beautiful. So there you go. Kotsanis Institute. They do all IPT. They do a lot of things. I'm not sure, they talk about organic food. I'm not sure how deeply, because I don't remember what Gus ate, but I don't think it was. Anyway, no one eats really human food. And how do I know? Because when I go to the conferences, I say, whoa, you guys are serving that to each other? My gosh. But everything else, all the therapies, a lot of them, and I'm sure the Kotsanis Institute has been keeping up with the times, because he passed a few years ago. But that's what I do. But in any other state, so what you could do is you go online, you can look up holistic, alternative, things like that. But another way is, and you look at their website, look at the services, look at the kind of words they use. Yeah, it's hard to evaluate them hard to evaluate them by looking at their website, because it's just hard. It's easier to evaluate a biological dentist who's not a biological dentist by looking at the services. But if you look at most medical, they're going to all be doing the same thing. They all do ozone, vitamin C, maybe hopefully curcumin. I don't know, maybe artesunate. Some do hyperbaric. Okay, but when they say they do vitamin C, what do they mean? What's the source? Where do they get it from? How much do they give you? Do they have a goal with the vitamin C? In other words, what do they want to achieve with it? So when they say they're going to give you 75 grams twice a week, okay, so where'd you get the vitamin C from? What is it made from? And all that. What else are you putting in the IV? How do we know it was enough? What is enough? What are we looking for? In other words, see if they know those things. They usually don't. And the ozone, what are we looking for the ozone? And can I give them in the same day? So that's the problem. So when they say on the medical, when you look at their services, they'll list all these things, but you really won't know. You'd have to, probably have to actually go in for an appointment and talk to them, or maybe you can get someone on the phone and ask them, can I, ask a few questions about this? Yeah. Now, the other thing is there's something called ACAM, the American College for the Advancement of Medicine. And a lot of guys who were trained, girls and guys who were trained, I think they were probably the first non-conventional alternative. ACAM was kind of like the AMA of alternative docs. And you can look in there by state, and they'll show you who has been trained by them to do certain things. And then you can find all the people's names, and it'll be next to their name what they do. They do chelation, they do ozone. And then this one might do vitamin C, chelation, and then, right? That's all it's going to tell you. It's not going to tell you anything else about them, but at least you'll help you identify. Then there's the American Holistic Medical Association, which you can look up. And then I know there is a similar type Professional Society for Naturopaths. Um, and then there is the orthomolecular medicine. So each of those you can look up and find out in your state, in your, where they are, and you can see if there's any close to you. Then you can call them and ask them, okay, besides those three things that you mentioned on the that are mentioned on the internet about the services you provide, do you do anything else? What do you do about diet and stuff like that? So basically, no one is going to understand diet. So you have to already know it, and just don't worry about it with that. Eat healthy. I don't know if they're going to talk to you about sleep. I don't know what they do in terms of that. Most of them are just into giving IVs, right? So most of them don't look at the whole thing, the whole lifestyle. And lifestyle is not a category. It's the context of our lives. It's everything, right? So next question is by Kristen. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's about a year and a half ago, and the doctors just want to fill him up with dopamine, which is making him much worse. He's dizzy all the time and cannot walk without a rollator. It has progressed so quickly, so my sister and I are trying to figure out a more natural path for him to take that might help restore some of the neurological function. Any advice? Well, Parkinson's progresses more quickly. Live will end in 4 minutes. Wow. TikTok. The Parkinson's medication makes it progress rapidly. And as soon as you start taking it, you can't not take it. But yeah, dopamine's the problem. And you got to, with your father, you got to find out. He's got a detox, because we know that Parkinson's is pretty much pesticides in the brain. That have damaged a certain part of the brain that's responsible for a lot of coordination of motor and things like that. And then eventually cognitive function. And, and the neurotransmitter is dopamine. But one of the things that happens with that is that in Parkinson's, the ability for the cell to, because initially it was overwhelmed with some sort of pesticide. So you need to increase the glutathione production in there. So what we have found is if you can give glutathione intravenously to someone who comes in very symptomatic with Parkinson's, which means they're walking like this and their face is stiff, while they're getting the IV, they're going to be like, oh, wow. So figure out a way to do that. What I used to do is I got glutathione suppositories. But somehow you got to get the glutathione in the blood. All right, so glutathione suppositories, IV glutathione. All right? But you've got to detox. You got to get rid of. There's a lot of pesticides in there, and so you do a complete detoxification protocol, and we all know what that involves. That involves juice cleansing, it involves colonics, it involves infrared saunas. So there's a lot to it, but you got to do that very major program with someone who has Parkinson's. The problem is, if someone is advanced, it's hard to get them to do anything, because first of all, they're physically having a difficult time, and then they might even get to the point where the cognitive impairment is preventing them from even understanding what you're talking about. So, you'll find that they get impatient and angry, and it's not really at you; they're angry at that they're in this condition. So, but you got to get to that. So yes, dopamine is a big problem of it. So remember, dopamine is made in the body, which is one of the neurotransmitters, and it requires ascorbate vitamin C. It requires it to be made. So we got to have his ascorbate levels up. We've got to maximize his minerals, zinc, selenium, molybdenum, boron, calcium, magnesium, you know, potassium, of course. You got to maximize that. You got to clean out the toxins, and so it's basically you do the same thing with someone who has Parkinson's or someone who has CFCs, except you're not going to give the really high dose vitamin C because you don't need to oxidize anything. But the ozone and all that's very important. Yeah, so you cannot walk without a relator. Okay. There's a guy named Perlmutter. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, and I haven't been looking at Parkinson's for a long time now, but he's a neurologist, and he pretty much was doing a lot of really cool natural approaches. And he became well known. I forget his first name. But see if you can find him. And he actually had a powdered supplement. And it was just basically 3 or 4 nutrients that were very helpful with Parkinson's. But he also might have a treatment facility. So look for a guy named Perlmutter and see if maybe he can recommend someone who's near you, or some things that you can do online, because that would be great. Because remember, not a lot of people really work with Parkinson's in an alternative way. A lot of people don't, because they don't really know what to do. But number one is, again, you can never overlook biodentistry, biological dentistry. Because there are people that had the biodentistry, they found cavitations, they found root canals, and you can have damage in you could have damage in your mouth and not know it, because maybe the root has been burnt out for one reason or another, and the nerves are, and you're not feeling pain. Even though there's a lot of inflammation going on, you're not feeling pain, so you don't even know it, right? You might think everything's fine. So you really have to get what's called a 3D cone beam CT, and you have to have someone who's trained to look at it, to see it from all angles, to make sure there's none of that in there. There's no cavitations, there's no problems with the roots, there's no problems around the roots, there's no problems in all that. And then you've got to, in addition to all that, you've got to look at the gums, right? And how healthy are they, and the tongue, and so there's a lot to look at. But you've got to and remember, so people have had the biodentistry work and antiparasitics, and they no longer have Parkinson's. And even with ALS, ALS, Lou Gehrig's, I can't say the word, what it is. And it's also called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is more of a description of what's happening. And we used to think it was, like a hereditary thing, and it just happened. But we're now realizing, I don't know if they are realizing, but it's now pretty clear that everything that we call like Parkinson's, ALS, CFCs, whatever it is an adaptive process, and there are many ways to get to the point where that is a required adaptive process. All right, so you can get to, right? So I remember a woman back I was still in New York. She was a CPA. She got the flu shot, the flu vaccine, and about a week later, she was talking like that. So it, and she couldn't, it took a lot. We worked with her for a long time. She finally got herself back. I must have taken 9 months. And then she went and got another flu vaccine. It happened again only within 2 days, and it was permanent. But anyway, again, so her condition, when she went to different places in the city, like in New York City, where, all the great hospitals in the city, and there was a controversy: is this ALS? Is this MS? Is it, So in other words, they can't figure out what name to put on it because those are not entities. ALS is not a thing. MS is not a thing. Parkinson's is not a thing. This is one of the final adaptive processes, paths that biology will take. Right? And you can get there from there. And what we're calling this, the parameters, the variables that define one condition versus another condition, really overlap so much because they're not things. They don't exist in and of themselves. I'm not explaining it well, but I will next time. I'll think about how to explain it better. But they're not, like, there's no ALS. And there's what happens with ALS. Oh, we notice this. When we do a biopsy, we notice this. It's a progressive loss of motor function. Well, what else can that happen with? Well, we noticed also with it's very similar to, but much worse than Guillain-Barré. Guillain-Barré, which we see happens from getting those special shots too. Remember the swine flu? Guillain-Barré is with like a progressive paralysis. So in other words, whatever's happening is damaging nerves, and the nerves are unable to protect themselves. So one of the things you do with all these conditions, in addition to cleansing thoroughly, juice cleanse, colonics, chelation, eating right, going to sleep early. In addition to doing all that, you're going to do things that will support the body's ability to protect itself, such as intravenous glutathione, such as intravenous N-acetylcysteines, some other things that are going to support the cells who are being affected the most, ability to restore, to clean themselves. You've got to do that. Now, all right, so this is Hilde. Okay, so Hilde is from South Africa. Okay, so I listened to many of your podcasts, but I did not hear much about leukemia. Specifically, what I am supposed to have since 2018 is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It used to be called Leukemia. Oh, that's German, okay. Meaning old age leukemia, and did not form part of the CFCs. Could the CLL have been caused by nickel and titanium PFO implant in 2002? This foreign metal object is stuck in my heart. I cannot remove it. How do I deal with this CLL and prevent CFCs in this scenario with heavy metals leaking into my bloodstream constantly? Wow. So it was an implant in your heart? All right, so, and you can't take it out since 2002, and you got that in 2018. Sure, that could be part of it. Yeah, definitely part of it. Because remember, a leukemia is really, it doesn't originate in the blood, it originates in the bone marrow, right? So the bone marrow is where all the blood cells are made, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, platelets. And so in their progenitor form, where they're still forming, something happens specifically. And so with the leukemias, what happens is one type of white blood cell will become a clone, and it will expand out. And so I've had people come in with, and it's chronic. Yeah, you're right. It happens in older people. But then it can go into a crisis, because any chronic leukemia can go into an acute crisis, and people will come in with white blood cell counts, which normally should never go above 10, with levels of 200, 300, and all that. And those are the times that I would use intravenous. I would use IPT just to lower it, get it down to something normal, healthier, or something you deal with. But then again, we got to support. It's always the same. We're going to cleanse. We're going to cleanse, and we're going to look for all other possible sources. So yeah, you have this in your heart, and you can't take it out. So that's that. But we can remove, if there's any other toxins in your mouth, anything else contributing to it. Now, in addition to that, we know that intravenous vitamin C is very good for leukemias. We know that. There's a lot of good studies with it. Even especially with CLL. Normally, what they treat CLL with is really incredible poisons like fludarabine, cyclophosphamide, and then it doesn't work. It's highly toxic, doesn't work. So then they found out, well, gosh, green tea, epigallocatechin gallate and curcumin, resveratrol. Wow. Genistein. These things seem to be working, right? Genistein from soy. So they're finding these things. So they've done some studies, and probably the most studies that have been on curcumin. Now, curcumin is absolutely, but ascorbate. Let me tell you what ascorbate does. It blocks HIF-1 alpha, or stops it, which is how tumors grow, which is how, even in leukemias, they require HIF-1 alpha to clone out, and you can stop that with ascorbate, vitamin C. Yeah. But the other thing is, another thing that's pretty common in leukemias, especially CLL, is there's something called the TET2, the 1011 translocase. And what that is, it's an enzyme that looks at the epigenome. Remember we talked about chronically fermenting cells? They have to ferment instead of making energy the standard way. And it's a very inefficient way of making it, because they only get 2 ATPs, energy packages, for every glucose. So they need to increase the amount of glucose they can get in. They need 19 times more glucose. So they change this, they change that, they change all these things on its on its genetic expression, and they do that, making what were called epigenetic changes occur by, adding methyl groups. A methyl group is just kind of like putting a block on something, like stopper, right? It's just a carbon with 4 hydrogens, so it's nothing. Nothing's going there. If you put that, it's like putting a cork. So it methylates all sorts of stuff, right? And you wind up with a different expression. That means, so whatever you methylated is no longer being expressed. So that's what it is. So this is just one set of the ions, and the TETs come along and they restore it. They bring back the way the cell was initially. Well, they require ascorbate. And as it turns out, there's studies that show that with CLL specifically, that plays a significant role in getting better. So yeah, what can you do? In addition, you can do chelation. You can do ascorbate, vitamin C, but you got to be drinking it daily so that you get your physiological requirements up, so that you don't have what's called chronic subclinical scurvy, and so that when you get your IVs, they can go to the you can get them to the pro-oxidant level. And you need to be taking vitamin D, you need to be taking, to get your levels up, your blood levels up to 100. You taking vitamin A, mixed carotenoids, taking Velasta, which again is astaxanthin with a glucose so that it goes into the cell. That's again a powerful antioxidant. And the curcumin is just, it's so important, specifically with CLL, but with all of them. Curcumin, like, it does so much that it gets the MVP award for, it does everything. It turns off almost all the signaling pathways that you don't want to be on. It turns them off. You couldn't list it all, what it does. It's just unbelievable. The problem with curcumin is when you take it orally, you only absorb 3%. And if you add pepperine, you're going to increase 8%. And that's just not enough. The other gets in the blood, it's quickly metabolized, and it doesn't last very long. That's why even IV, even IV curcumin doesn't get there. So what it looks like is and there's currently some studies going on looking at using curcumin IV in a liposomal form. So normally the liposomal is used specifically for oral so that you can absorb it, get better absorption. But this is IV liposomal. And the reason it's being used is there's a lot of good evidence that tumors and bone marrow, anything that's going to be chronically fermenting, will pick it up to a greater extent than other tissues, other cells. So it's almost like a way of targeting it, the liposomal. So, but curcumin, I mean, you would not believe what it suppresses, almost all the signaling pathways, and turns off the NF-kappa beta, which is the fundamental molecule of inflammation. And just like with a tumor, a tumor there's an initiation, there's a promotion, and then there's progression, and then there's metastasis. All of those steps are all stopped by curcumin. It's crazy. We just have to find out how can we use it. And actually, there's some studies now. We're in touch with a guy who from New York. He's an MD, PhD, and he's doing clinical trials now with using it with gliomas, right, brain, and it's all looking good. So we are going to get some. Oh, okay. So Dr. Promoter's in Florida. Yeah, he's that was his. I mean, in fact, he's a neurologist, but he was really very much interested in Parkinson. So now, I don't talk about leukemia as much. You're right, but I'm here to say that they're really the same. I mean, it's the same. It's just that it's happening starting in the bone marrow rather than starting in the breast. But it's the same process going on. And what we see is the manifestation in the blood. And it can be, interestingly enough, I don't know if it's interesting, but it can be that you have an extremely high white blood cell count. And then I've had people that have had extremely low, because there's a condition that can precede a leukemia called myelodysplastic syndrome, where in the bone marrow, something is suppressing or stimulating the increase of any one of the three elements that are produced: white blood cells and platelets. like, and start to get TIAs, which are mini strokes, and or low. So there's a leukemia where their total white count was like 1. So that, and so of course they're neutropenic. They have no neutrophils, low lymphocytes, and say that, well, the last thing in the world I'm do is give them chemo, IPT. But that's when you do give IPT. You got it because you're in dire straits, so you got to do it. And then that'll bring it back. So it sounds like you're in a pretty chronic, stable, and you've got that ongoing thing. So you have to be taking oral chelating agents. And you can take EDTA orally and rectally, maybe 2-3 times a week during the day. And then you can take DMSA a couple times a week before bed, like 500 milligrams before bed, twice a week. And that way you're pretty much getting all possible metals, right? And then, but that's something you definitely need to be doing, since especially for you, you've got this thing lodged in your heart. Wow, crazy. Where is the, gotta get my water. Where's my water? It's not here. Oh, well. Okay. No water. All right. So, but I'm telling you, with leukemias, there's a lot you can do. So curcumin and ozone, amazing. Ozone's fantastic. So there's all these therapies are definitely work in any kind of chronically fermenting cell. Okay, so now wow. Someone misspelled my name. Lordi, Dr. Lordi. Anyway, I want to try to get through. What is an alternative to a biopsy if you fear CFCs? Well, let's not fear CFCs. Let's just say you don't want to have CFCs. And of course, anyway, the whole fear thing, of course, you're afraid because of all the PR that's been put into those words. But anyway, instead of a biopsy, you can do a PET scan, you can do a ultrasound, you can do, you can you pretty much see what it is. Depends on where it is. Are we talking about breast? Are we talking about inside your body somewhere? Usually, if it's Kelly, it's probably, the way you're asking it sounds like it's probably breast, because I don't see I don't see anything here. And yeah, so but yeah, breast MRI, if it is breast MRI, and they can tell by what it looks like. PET scans can do that as well, PET CT. You can do those things, or you can just say, you know what, I don't want to put a name on it. What I know I have going on in my breast, or whatever it is an adaptive response. And it's an inflammatory adaptive response trying to protect me, trying to heal from whatever's going on. And what's going on is, well, let me just, instead of guessing, let me do this. Let me go to the biological dentist, get everything taken out. Let me do a good 8-week, 6-week juice cleanse. I'll do colon hydrotherapy. I'll do lymphatic work. I'll go to sleep early. I'll start moving around. I'll be taking vitamin C throughout the day, sipping 7-7. I'll take vitamin D, the D3, K2, so that my level's up to 100. I'll take vitamin A, so that my level's up to like 98. Mixed carotenoids, and I'll take some Valasta And I'll take melatonin at night, because why? Melatonin is really a neurotransmitter, immune modulator. It's not a hormone, really. And it's not subject to any feedback loops, because you can take a ton of it, and as soon as the lights go out, you'll make more. Whereas that's not the same with like estrogen or testosterone or any other kind of hormone that we think of. So, but it's a neuromodulator, big time. Wakes up the T cells, the B cells, dendritic cells, activates them, NK cells, big time. So you do that, you get your thyroid straight, right? Unless you're Japanese and you're living in a small little town, or you're eating completely traditional Japanese food, you're could be iodine deficient. Would be. So you need iodine, and you'll need to check your thyroid by doing your basal body temperatures and make sure you've got to get your temperature up to either 97.8, or under Celsius, you want to be 36.8. If you can get up to there, so you might have to take natural thyroids to keep you with a healthy thyroid until the year and a half goes by when you've had enough iodine that's been replaced. And then you want to take care of your adrenals, your adrenal glands. So to do all this, and then of course your sex hormones, whatever they are, whatever, you want to get those balanced as well. Heal your gut. So you're going to do all these things, and you're going to find that this thing that you didn't put a name on is going to be gone, because it's a response to something. It's not like if you put a name on it, you're going to give it, it's like giving it attention. It's like the kid who is having a tantrum over there. If you want the tantrum to stop, you walk away. You don't give it attention. So put a name on it, because then now it's this thing. Right now it's just, okay, my body's dealing with whatever. And my body's adapting to a confluence of toxins, right? To look at it that way. Well, I got to get some water. 1 second. Can't believe it. I'm out of water. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as being out of water, because back in those days, you could just go to the faucet and it was actually okay. I used to drink out of the hose. And no one ever heard the word organic, because, back in the day. But anyway, so now you can run out of water. I got to go get some water later. So anyway, if you don't have a name for it, yay, hallelujah, don't put a name on it, because the name is going to give you ideas. It's going to give it existence. It's going to, and then it's going to lock in all this. So right now, it's like my body is doing what it needs to do right now, because we know that anything that what the body has to adapt to simply is that its biological needs are not being met. So that's either it's got inadequate nutrients, or it's got accumulated toxins. Okay, so the toxins, we know, we've gone over this 1 billion times, from the mouth all the way down. Clean it out. And then put some iodine on it. If it's your breast, I don't know where it is. You didn't say where. What are you under? Well, it's under head and neck. Okay, so maybe it's here. But anyway, everything I said is whole. It's true. It doesn't matter. Get some Lugol's 5%, or if you have 2%, only get 2% to use it. But just paint wherever the lymph node is. And you've got to learn to practice psychoneuroimmunology. You've got to learn to turn off this fear, because what the fear is, because if you give it that name, the reason you're afraid, because that name that we don't use, Sagittarius, um, is synonymous with death. So of course you're afraid. I would be. Everybody's afraid. So you don't use that word because that's not even relevant. That's not even what it is. There's no crabs and there's no astrological zodiacs in your body anywhere, if it's head and neck or anything like this. So, anyway, so you don't need a biopsy, because remember we talked earlier that the biopsy is going to do what? It's going to give you a description of the tissue. Then what? Then what? What did that do? Well, if it was a CFC, it spread around. And now what? Well, that's going to give you a specific kind of chemotherapy? No. And let's say you got the perfect, absolute perfect chemotherapy. I don't care where it is in your body. You get the perfect, this is it. I did the biopsy. Now I know exactly what I have to give. You give it and it's gone. But is it? No, it's not. Because what does chemo do? Not do? It does not kill CFC stem cells, which are the only cells that can spread. Not only does it not kill them, it enhances them. It produces more. So, and the chemo does other things too. It enhances, it improves the microenvironment of distant areas where the seeds might go. So it does everything you don't want it to do. All right. So that's the only value that would be in doing a biopsy, if you want to call that value, but that's the only reason for doing the biopsy. And then you put a name on it. Now that name is going to be stuck in your heart forever. Right now, you don't have a name. You don't have a name, and that's great. It doesn't exist. It's your body doing its protective dance. So eliminate everything it could possibly be trying to protect itself from, and it won't. I promise. But you got to turn the mind off. You got to learn to turn the mind off 5 times a day for only 2 minutes. You're going to very quietly just listen, heart and soul, to your breath. And after a couple months, you might get up to 10 seconds, because you can't last that long. But when you do, you're going to go to a place that is called now. It's eternal. It's where God lives. And you'll find at that moment, your immune system, it's like you took your foot off the brakes of the immune system that goes through the roof. And everything's powerful. It's called psychoneuroimmunology. But psychoneuroimmunology also, the reason you turn your mind off is because of psychoneuroimmunology. Because right now, your mind is saying, and it's suppressing your immune system. Right? So, but by turning your mind off, you take the brakes off. Powerful, powerful. And by the way, there's a lot of good studies on this that show that it's measurable. Okay. But you've got to do that like 5 times a day for only 2 minutes. And you want to do that because you want to get good at it, because your mind is just tumbling all day long and it's going to land on that fear. And you want to get such control over turning the mind off that when you land on a fear, you can just you're not there. You got to be able to find that place. But, and again, what's the alternative to the biopsy? Well, you could do a PET scan, you could do all that stuff, and then find out that it lit up. But I'm going to tell you something. We had a lady 2 or 3 years back, who had a very large, not very large, but a medium-sized mass in her lung. And she came to me because she knew I don't require a biopsy. I'm glad you didn't do it. But she had already done a PET scan. And the PET scan, the SUV, which is the uptake of the glucose, it can be inflammation, it could be mild infection, until you get up to 7. Like above 7, they say, wow, it's probably not infection anymore, like with a fungus or something like that. Because that's going to cause sugar to be eaten. But hers was 26. So 26 is like way up. We never did a biopsy. Did all the things like I told you with cleansing, parasite cleanse after parasite cleanse, 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off, 3 on. Ozone, vitamin C, colonics, all the things that we do, lymphatics, all that. Gone, gone. Never did get a name on that sucker, but it's gone, gone. So the radiologist was like tripping over his tongue and his finger. We must have been, or maybe it was, because 26. That's like high SUV. It's got to be. But what? But you didn't do any chemo. You didn't do any radiation. It's gone because they don't think what things that we do work, like vitamin C, curcumin. What? Yeah. So anyway. But it's gone. So listen, she never got a name on it. You know what? She's really happy. Well, this is great, Renata. Okay, here's Renata saying, I can't get a second opinion because every doctor sees the documents and gives me the same opinion. Of course they are. And you know why? Because your next line, you're saying I was diagnosed with myeloid sarcoma. Okay. You had 3 biopsies in less than a month on the same tumor, plus bone marrow biopsy, which came clean. First, they told me it's AML, and I need to stay in the hospital for intensive chemo, or I would die within 2 months. Yeah, right. They say things like that, right? They should be arrested. At least they should have their tongue tied up, and you have your tongue tied up, you pull it back, and you tie it around their ears, and they have to stay like that for at least 6 months for saying those things. I said, I'm not ready. I want to go home. You went home. Great. After that, they did a second biopsy, which came back inconclusive because all the cells they collected were dead. So then they said they need a third biopsy because the bone marrow biopsy came back as neutral. Clean. So the third biopsy, they took a very long time to get back to me, about 2 weeks. No one contacted me. I left 39 messages, and finally they called and said, it's leukemia tumor. And even though I don't show typical signs of leukemia, they are sure I will get leukemia eventually. They said most people get leukemia first and then tumors, and I got the tumor first, and eventually I will get leukemia. The tumor got bigger after each biopsy, and after the third biopsy, I had difficulty walking. They said I can either do 12 to 15 low-dose radiation or low-dose chemo. I went with radiation, which I finished last week. The pain is worse, the legs swollen. Now they are saying I need chemo. I need an honest second opinion, praying that you will see this and help me. Renata, 70-year-old female, healthy until this, and didn't take don't use that word. It's not, you're with your friends and you're joking, you jab them. A little branch hits you, it's a jab. Jab is a benign thing. And the only reason that word became, where did we get that word? We didn't use it before. Where did it come from? It came from them. How did they say it in the BBC, CNN, Fox, CSNBC? Yeah, they all just said jab, 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 jab. And so we're walking, did you get a jab? No, I got a jab, as if it's really nothing. Anyway, anyway, you didn't get fooled, and no bioweapons. Beautiful. Now, and so you're 70, which means that you're a grown-up now. I love that. Um, wow. Yeah. Okay. So you got it. I think you're almost. You could have written my book that I'm almost. I won't say it. Close to done. They call it the true second opinion because you can't get one. You go to this guy and this guy, this guy, this guy. As soon as they get the name, the histological diagnosis, which is just a description, it tells them what to do. Okay, so you can't possibly get a different opinion. Um, so they're saying it's a myeloid sarcoma. Okay, so myeloid means bone marrow. Sarcoma means that it is a malignant process that arises out of the mesoderm. So, but it's on your left calf. So it's got features of myeloid on muscle. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the calling is, it's just names. But they biopsy, in other words, whatever it is, they disturbed it, they made it angry, and it's responding, it's inflamed, and all that sort of thing. But the bone marrow is clean, so that really kind of blows their idea that it's going to turn into a leukemia. You don't have it yet, but you're going to get it. Isn't that nice of them? Doing is that sorcery? Yeah, it's sorcery, right? Okay, so what is going on with your leg? Well, very easily could be a parasite or a nest of them, very easily. You got to go to biological. In other words, what you have to do, Renata, is the same thing that we all have to do when we get any kind of situation. Get rid of all possible sources of toxicity. And you start with the mouth. Clean out this tube, colonics. Drink nothing but juice, flood it out. Do all that sort of thing. And by the way, if anybody ever gets a lump in the future anywhere or anything like that, do all this first before you go to any hospital or any white-coated sorcerer. Don't go to them because they're going to just inflame it and see if it'll go away. That's what you're going to do if you found out that it's, and you're able to put a name on it. But so I like it better if you don't put a name on it. Okay, just make it an it. It's got to be an it. You can't call it. It's not a noun that you would call, male or female. Unless, of course, you're speaking a Latin-derived language. Now they're saying you need chemo. Okay, so just stay far away from them, Renata. You got to clean out, and you got to get some antiparasitics for sure. For sure. Ivermectin, mebendazole, niclosamide, maybe nitazoxanide with maybe tinidazole. So one or two antiprotozoals, and then antifungal. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. Clean, like I just described it for the other people. Just keep doing that. It's going to get better, okay? And don't let anybody poke holes in you anymore, okay? Poke holes. Oh, is that a problem there? Oh, let's just poke it. Let's just poke it. Why do you want to poke it? I want to find out a name. I want to put a name on it. Do you realize the absurdity of the games they're playing with us, with our bodies? I mean, you don't. You're fine, Renata. As you said, you're healthy. Okay, you're healthy. There's some toxicity in your body. It needs to be cleaned out. It's time for your 50,000-mile. What is it? Tune-up checkup. Just clean it all out. Do a 5-week, 4-week juice cleanse. Get some colonic. One or minimum 1 a week. 2 a week would be nice for about 8 weeks. By an experienced colon therapist. See if you can find a certified lymphatic therapist and get some lymphatic therapy, both manual and electrolymphatic therapy, ELT. Um, do these take the supplements we already mentioned. The ADC, um, melatonin. Work your way up to 180 milligrams. Start low. Work your way up. Thyroid and adrenals. We got to get them going. Then balance your hormones, your sex hormones. Just do all that, and then find somebody where you can get intravenous vitamin C, and maybe you can get some ozone as well. But first, clean, 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 clean. Most of the time, this goes away. I don't know where you are, Renata, but I'm assuming you're in the U.S., but who knows? Yeah, you can call the center and tell them you need to talk to me. There was, where was that one? Sherry. Yeah, Sherry. This is Dr. Lodi. I know I have parasites, and my doctors are not listening. And the one doctor that doesn't know what to do. He just gives me referrals, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I'm getting sicker by the day now. I'm getting bad headaches. I never had them before. I feel like I got the flu all the time. Very weak muscle and joint pain, sores, and a lot more. My skin is alive and wiggling and looking horrible. My teeth are rotting away. My hair is falling out. Please help me. All right, Sherry. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you saw the Parasite webinar, but you know, if you got you can see it's wiggling. All right, so definitely worms and not protozoa. So maybe 4 antihelminths. So maybe ivermectin, mebendazole, niclosamide, and praziquantel maximum. But where are you going to get them? Because even if that doctor that doesn't know what to do and keeps referring you out, ask them if they will collaborate with me, and I can tell them what to do. And I'll explain to him why and all that. So I'm not going to just say do this, but I'll explain to him why. If he'll do that, that would be great, because then you've got someone right there. But you got to do everything else, cleansing, your teeth. You got to go to a biological dentist. That could be what's happening. You got to go to a biological dentist. You got to go. I don't know where you live, but you got to find a real biological dentist who's going to do a 3D cone beam biopsy. If your teeth are falling out, you got to go. I don't know if you had trauma in your life earlier, and that you maybe have some teeth that you didn't know were destroyed, but you've got to go that. You got to do that. Clean out, and do antiparasitics. Yes, right away. Okay, wherever you live, look under biological dentistry, look under services, make sure they don't put in root canals, make sure they don't fix root canals because you can't fix it. Make sure they don't put metals in your mouth. Make sure they do use ozone, make sure they do use PRF, platelet-rich fibrin, and make sure they check your blood against all the dental materials called biocompatibility testing. Yeah. And if they do all that, then that's cool. Then you'll be good. Your teeth are rotting away. Your hair is falling out. And so that, your hair falling out too. So we also have to balance your hormones. There's you need a lot. So if your doctor that's referring you away is willing to collaborate with me, I would do that. If not, and you're in the US, you can come to our center in Arizona. Call the center in Arizona. I don't know where you are, but you got to start with biological dentistry. And as I said, so you can go to alldaychemist.com. You can go to apollopharmacy.in. You can go to number one mg.com, and those are online pharmacies to get all of the antiparasitics. And I don't know if you saw the webinar I have on the website for parasites, but you can get like protocols there. But call those places, and you can get it without having to have, because most of the pharmacies in the U.S. won't. They'll say those are too much. Here's Joanna. I took mebendazole on its own 3 days, 2 times a day, and then I repeated the same 2 weeks after. And I'm worried I've disturbed them. My lymph nodes are no longer swollen. I go to the bathroom regularly and feel overall better, but still itchy. I watched YouTube videos saying that you should do a mix of 3 because you can disturb them. They migrate. Should I do everything the way you suggest, or is it now too late? No, it's not too late. Not at all. Not at all. But I would recommend, and plus, you just didn't do it long enough. And if you're doing just one, it's better to do 2 or 3, and then the antiprotozoals and the antifungals. And yeah, do it. Do it all. Do 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and do this for at least like 6 cycles of 3 weeks on, 1 week off, right? Joanna. And also do the cleansing. You got to do the cleansing, and you got to make sure your teeth are okay, because you don't want to just focus on one aspect. You want to make sure your whole body is healing and doing well. All right. That's very important. And then, oh my gosh, there's so many good questions here. Maria, hello. I have a ropeworm, not only in my intestines. I spit all day, probably in my lungs and stomach as well. Do you consider it a parasite? How to get rid of it? I've already done a lot of protocols. Thanks a lot, and please answer this time. Sorry, I didn't know. I'm sorry, I must have missed you a couple times. I just don't know. Okay, so ropeworms are very, I guess it's unusual. We didn't even know about them until around 2009, and there's controversy. Are they? I don't know why they're looking at the microscopes, and you can do tests. They're saying that this is like 4 stages. Stage 1 is mucus. Stage 4 is it's a meter long. So anyway, they're a brown color, so almost the color of feces. They can't tell if they are. And once they get out in the atmosphere and dry it, they apparently have a very foul, very bizarre odor. I don't know. So the pictures I've seen, and I've never had anyone come to me with ropeworm, and they produce this slimy stuff. So they don't know if it's mucus, or they don't know if it's a biofilm or all that. I don't know why they don't know, because if you have it, you evaluate it. You cut it up and you look at it, and you can see if there's cells in there. You can do electron microscopy. There's all kinds of stuff to do to figure out if it's a living thing. So I'm gonna. It's such a phenomenon, and it's coming out, and people have it. And I understand you see that. I'm not having ever had anybody with what's called they're calling rope burn. And it's weird. They use these bubbles to propel themselves, and they use this, and they use the bubble, and then they suck on to the near the in the colon, so that they don't get washed away with the feces and stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, it sounds pretty alive to me. Um, so, and then is it bio? Is it a? Why did we only find them in 2009? Is it a? Is it synthetic biology? Is it a bioweapon? We don't know. But anyway, I would take all the major antihelminthics, right? Anti-worms, right? Ivermectin 12 milligrams 3 times a day, mebendazole 500 3 times a day, praziquantel 600 milligrams 3 times a day, niclosamide 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And I would do at least one antiprotozoal, because we are hosts to about 300 species of worms and about 70, a little over 70 species of protozoa. Right, and so we're hosts. In other words, they kind of think of us as home. So what I'm saying is that while you're getting and they also, when they're present in there, they're going to cause a dysbiosis. Your gut microbiome won't be healthy, and if that's not healthy, your whole body's in trouble. So while you're getting rid of these worms, you might as well get rid of any protozoal that would be not there, and they're everywhere. And protozoals are just single-celled organisms that you'll never see. They're microscopic. So tinidazole, like 100, whatever they have in your place, 100 milligrams 3 times a day. So you can do all of these 3 days on, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Now with you having the ropeworm, you might do it 4 weeks on, 1 week off. Now, on the week off, everyone who's doing it, you want to be taking, or you can be taking it all the time, but especially on your week off, you want to be taking like silymarin 500 milligrams 3 times a day. You want to be taking alpha lipoic acid like 3 to 400 milligrams 3 times a day, and at least one B complex, just to keep the liver regenerating and healthy. But yeah, these guys are weird. These ropeworms, and I don't know why they don't know. I wish someone would come to me and bring one. I would get it analyzed, because it's been since 2009. How come they don't know? I mean, it's just very strange. But you got to do all those. All right, 4 weeks on, 1 week off. But I'd be getting IVC, ozone, clean up, like we talked about. All that. It's always have to do that. But these ropeworms are, okay. Wow, 709. Okay. So one thing here. This is from Cinzia. I read that glucose and glutamine cause the cells to ferment. Should we avoid all foods that contain glucose and glutamine? Oh, ciao, daroma. Okay, so yeah, it is Cinzia. I don't know how to say it. Okay, so, well, the only diet that avoids glutamine and glucose would be H2O. It's called water. Glutamine is a very abundant amino acid. It's also an amino acid that we don't have to ingest because we make it. It's called a non-essential. And it's the most abundant amino acid in our body. So, and we need it for all kinds of stuff. But our lymphocytes, the white blood cells that are going to kill for CFCs, need that for fuel. The cells that line our small intestines that we need to absorb our nutrients need that glutamine. Can't get rid of it. Can't get rid of the glucose because we need that. Glucose also forms the carbon skeleton for making other molecules in our body, like fatty acids and cholesterol and stuff. So in addition to being fuels, that's what they are. And again, if we don't eat glucose, our body will make it. from the liver. I mean, in the liver from the muscles. But what you don't eat, you don't eat synthetic sugars and a lot of sugars. You just eat healthy food. And there's so many other things you can do. Because remember, the fermenting cells are that way because they're adapting because they lost their mitochondria. So you got to get rid of all toxins. You got to go to sleep early. You've got to move around all day. You've got to have healthy relationships. You've got to have clean bowels. You got to do all the things that we talk about. And don't worry about that because whatever CFCs need to survive, so do our healthy cells. So we can't trick it that way. We've got to restore balance. We restore the autonomic nervous system. We restore the hormone system. We restore the gastrointestinal system. And we restore the immune system. And we turn off the madman or madwoman inside of our heads. That's what we do. Anyway, it's late. Sawadee cup and cup. Koto. If I didn't get to you, if I didn't get to you, we will next time. And you guys have the Parasite questions. Let's get on that Parasite group. So we'll do it again next week. And yeah. So I don't know where you all are, but here it's what time is it? It's 7:12. So that means for you guys in New York, it's what? 10:12. Wow. And for you guys in Thailand, what time is it? 9 a.m. Yay, 9:12 a.m. Wow, day's getting started. And there's so many questions I didn't get to. My gosh, how are we going to do this? Oh, real quick, Jenna, please help me with osteosarcoma. I've had that nobody seems to know. Have surgery coming up for lung mets. Started in the right tibia. Walked away from chemo. Right, doesn't. Okay, Jenna, everything I've been saying about the mouth, biodentist, you got to do it right away. Okay, vitamin C, ozone. You got to do all these therapies, curcumin, and parasites, big time, and a specific and but the antiparasitics are good for with osteosarcomas as well. Niclosamide, specifically. So they took off your tibia and they replaced it with titanium, and you can see that didn't help because it's in your lung. It's not that because it doesn't help. It's in your lung, but that's okay. You can do there's therapies we can do where you that we can address that. Now, if I would do, depending on the situation, as long as you're breathing okay and you're not having a problem, I wouldn't necessarily do it. But if you did have a problem, we could do an insulin potentiation therapy with it, just to get you back to not having a problem breathing. But yeah, so yeah, but you're right. High dose chemo does not work. So anyway, that's it, you guys. Sawadee Kap, namaste, namaskar, aloha, and have a fantastic week. Next week, where will I be? Wow. I guess next week I'm going to be traveling at this time. Yeah. Wow. So we have to skip a week because I'll be in the air. Imagine if I could do it in the plane. I can't. Okay, anyway. Bye-bye, you guys. Bye. Come on, gosh.